I think that Gert, the end of your presentation was very nice, showing that food, you have the benefits and the risk of eating marine mammal, but food is not only that, food is also for culture, identity, food security, and economy, and everything has to be taken into account. So I think I would like to ask the three speakers who are here to come back here, and we have just a few minutes for question if we take a little bit on the coffee break time, but I think it's important to try to see where we are now. Are we going to tell are we going to tell people, yes, eat meat, or can we only tell them eat baleen whale or don't eat young seal? What can we tell them? What is the best to do? And we have seen also that even in the Faroes, the way these animals are getting is a lot of sport or exercise that you don't have when you go and take the fast food in a shop. So there's really a lot of things in this question of benefits and risk. Yeah. So I don't know who wants to start.
I think there's a lot of important information we have given here today, but the decision to choose what you want to eat is for everyone to take that. It's important to give the information, but the decision have to be taken of the individual, because talking about the things I talked about culture, about well-being, about mental health, all these things, except for the Inuit, have a huge important value, and I cannot tell them not to eat that, because that value they have to decide by themselves how much do that means compared to both the risk and the benefit. And there is both risk and benefit in eating the food we are living in our area.
I would say that I totally agree, of course. The other thing that we really should think a lot of is that when you showed us the picture, when we are not eating the local food, what are we eating then? We are always giving advice that you shouldn't eat local food or subsistence food because there are contaminants or so. And then people are shifting to diets high in carbohydrates, high in saturated fat, high in a lot of other things. So they are more sick, there are more diabetes, there are more cardiovascular diseases, and there are more of the diseases that we are warning about, in a way. I think the strategy that's been chosen to warn pregnant women and small children, that's a good strategy, to warn them against food items that's high in either POPs or these dioxin and persistent organic contaminants, or high in mercury. We should warn them against those kind of foods. But then in the general population, we have to think of what do they replace it with when we are giving these advices.
John?
Yes. What should we then eat? If many of these imported food, like fruit and vegetables, they have pesticides in it, more or less, especially from countries out of Europe. And meat have they have antibiotica, especially from United States, and in the long term, it's definitely not healthy.
Is it done, for example, we have seen in the session before this life cycle assessment where you look at here was in Greenland with comparing two products. Has it been done to say if you eat this or if you change and you take important things, what at the end is going to be the result? Has this kind of study been done?
There are emerging studies now that started to look at the implication. What has these shifts in the rural population, in the diet of rural population, what has it brought forward? Are the people going to be more healthy, or are they not? But that's more emergent things. But the thing that we know is that game meat and things are really high proportion is replaced by more unhealthy foods.
Yeah. But then, and we know also that all these pollutants, they are not specially coming from our area of the earth. So what can we do to be more active? You said being in the AMAP and being in this international body, you can come and say, so how can NAMMCO, for example, have more action in that sense, trying to avoid pollution?
Yeah,
Or should be more active?
there are international initiatives, the Stockholm Convention, and of course it's important to use that, and that is also why we take part in AMAP, because we more or less know about the pollution situation, but it is not to be aware of what to eat or not to eat. It is to get cleaner food. So our importance being in AMAP is to go into international initiative with strong argument, because one of the things when we between Inuit are talking is the mental health situation among Inuit. Here the change for not being so close to the nature, to have the possibility of hunting and taking care of a family by serving them with all what nature can give us. This change have a huge impact on mental health, and we especially talk with young people where we know we have a very high suicide rate, and here one of the things most young people are saying, the best healing process is to be in the nature, to eat our food, which make us strong. So to come and say in Greenland, do not hunt, do not be a part of the nature, it is something which is so important that the contaminant doesn't matter at all. Yeah, but due to get cleaner food, it's important to do this measurement so we still can go to the international initiative and work for cleaner food, because we want a cleaner environment. It's also for the whales, which is such important to get a cleaner environment. It's not only for humans.
No, it's true. You wanted to make a comment?
It was just like I totally agree, of course, but on the other hand, we really have to back up to the Stockholm Convention, the Minamata Convention, and all these organizations that's working on how to get rid of contaminants, the emission and then the content in those foods. And that's, in fact, one of the things that have worked. You could see on my slides that both the emission and the contents in food have been reduced. So I'm lucky to say that there are means, we could get rid of these compounds. But of course we have to analyze the food and all the time, because when we are shutting down one contaminant, they will still need other chemicals to do the same job as the old chemicals did. So then they are developing new, and when they start producing them, we don't know the effect of them. So there's really a nice work done in these organizations, and we should support that.
Okay. So probably we can try to see if NAMMCO can support more this organization, or maybe, I don't know, facilitate their work or be more present there to say that they support the action they do. I think we'll stop there because otherwise we'll not have a coffee break and maybe I'm not going to be... Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, we can do that. Is there any question from the audience then? There is one here.
I'm so glad that I'm here today, and I was hearing so many good point of views about food as a cultural aspect and like the identity of the people, and also with this problem of global warming, climate emergency, how much we are in food scarcity and how important it is to take care of the children and the next generation about giving them food. And unfortunately, what I'm missing is the other half of this circle of climate collapse, and that would be just that how we're not taking in consideration that how much of the consumption will affect the climate change, and that will eventually again affect the food scarcity. So I'm not seeing that in the NAMMCO sustainability aspects of it. And then second, how much are we gonna even step forward and understand that it's a global problem, and then each community, each local community in global scale has to maybe sacrifice a little bit and contribute to the fact that maybe it's time to give away a little bit of our food choices, our even unfortunately some traditions, to leave something for our children. That I think, if all of that will be endangered, then what will our traditions mean in the end? Does NAMMCO even is ready to take a step forward and to talk about maybe we should give away some of these things for the sake of the future children, and also for the communities that cannot afford this sacrifice, and their daily life really depends on the things that we're talking about, on the food that they have to get locally, because there's no other way that they can go to more vegetarian options or the foods that are coming from other countries. So that's the two questions that I hope it was clear.
Maybe more comments than questions? Does anyone want to?
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand or fully agree. I think that you mentioned when I started that nowadays I'm working on the other end of the food chain with the low trophics. But anyway, if we should utilize the food chain or foods from the food chains, or in particular the marine food chain, we will have to have some kind of balance. That would mean that we will have to harvest down in the food chain and on the top of the food chain to get it balanced. And I'm not sure that all these communities, rural communities, in Greenland, for instance, can afford not to eat whales. I think that today we have heard that it's their food, it's their economy, it's their culture, it's their identity. So then, if we as a big world or a big society should ask them to do so, we would probably have to pay them in some way, and we have to kind of give them other kinds of food and other kinds of livelihoods than to just stop it like that's kind of interesting. But on the other hand, I think Sean this morning told us that there are 800 million people starving, and we know that still the population growth is going sky high. And we know that we would need more, like 60% more food before 2050 to have food enough. So we have really a crisis in the food sector, and we know that we have to decrease the carbon dioxide emission from the foods we are eating. 30% of the carbon dioxide emission comes from food production, and that has to go down. So we have to find other ways of harvesting. And the ocean panel said that we could multiply the production from the ocean by 6 if we went lower in the food webs and did a better balanced harvest in the ocean. So, but even if we multiply the ocean production by 6, we will still miss 2/3 of the calories that we need before 2050. So there's a food crisis going on there. And it's far bigger than the things that we are discussing just now. So the perspectives are really, I have the same perspective as you, but I think that we will really have to see the crisis coming.
But just to, I give you the word, but just to make a comment and to go back to the session before, we saw from the talk from Frederick that the fact that to tell the Greenlanders don't eat seals because we like seals, I mean, it's actually, you end up with a greater emission of greenhouse gas emission if they import food. So actually, to be more sustainable and more environmental friendly, you have to tell the Greenlanders, yes, eat seals, and to tell the EU, let them sell the skin and get money from the skin, because this is how you get less greenhouse gas emission. Things are not simple, and what you do in one place has also, affect other places.
Yeah, no, I was considering the fact that there are communities that cannot afford that sacrifice, but I was thinking mostly about the unnecessary part of the food that we are holding on to because of tradition, or because of things that we like to eat, or because of the nutritions that they have, but maybe there's also other source to find those certain nutritions. So, I mean, specifically those things that are not necessary considering the emergency situation that we are into.
Like what?
Well, like, I'm sure that for so many nutritions that we're talking about, we have a plant-based solution too, and also when there's so many, like as you mentioned, I forgot her name, that sometimes the number of hunts that is done in so many places is so much more than the amount that is necessary. But here in Faroe Islands, for example, you do it because it's part of the tradition, and I completely understand it. But if it's not necessary, do we still have to do it? That's the sacrifice I'm talking about, that maybe we should be ready to make in order to give a chance for those communities who cannot make this sacrifice, and also for the next generation. I hope I'm clear about that.
Yeah, I think we have to. Okay, there's one question, and maybe we can talk later. But I think it's a difficult discussion, and I think the important for me, and not as General Secretary of NAMMCO, the important thing is that you have to be extremely local, and wherever you are, to try to use the food that is the least impacting the environment. Sometimes it's the plant, sometimes it's the meat, because I mean, growing things or importing vegetal things in Greenland is not without consequence for the environment. So it's big balance to reach. There's one question, and then we stop. And
thank you. My name is Rune Frøvik. I run a whale meat processing plant in Norway. I have a question to Hóraldur Joensen. You mentioned the benefits of selenium, and then I understood you said something about the relationship between selenium and mercury, that selenium helps to remove or reduce mercury in the body.
Yes.
This is something I've heard before as well. Could you please elaborate a little bit? Is this substantiated by research? Are there studies behind this? Or is this a hypothesis, or is this more a conclusion? And how do you think food safety agencies should incorporate this knowledge about the relationship between selenium and mercury? Thank you.
Selenium is incorporated in proteins and enzymes, selenocysteine, and they complex bind with the mercury, and then it is excreted through the feces and urine mainly. And that is, there are actually many papers describing this in many details. So that is old knowledge. And you can, actually it is part of the explanation why we in Faroes don't have a much higher load of mercury than we have. We have some mercury and also other pollutants, but actually we have almost the highest life expectancy in Europe. The females 86 years and the males 82 years. And we have also less dementia in all other countries in Europe. It is
maybe the environment, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's genetic or it is the food also. And yeah.
Okay, I think we have to stop now.
Also shortly say that in AMAP and especially together with University in Canada, we are doing a lot of work also with other things that selenium, there are some selenite and other things which have this effect. And they are being doing a lot of research on that due to the high level of mercury. And especially in Greenland, we know that in Madak, the selenium is so high. And we have done some of the same research as in Faroe Islands, in Ranak, where the mercury level is very high. And here the selenium level is also very high, and we cannot find some of the same thing as says show in the Faroe Island between the children in Ranak. Maybe it's because it was a small population, but it could also be the high level of selenium, which could be an explanation. But we are continuing the research about that.
Thanks a lot, Gert, and thanks to my speakers and the ones who were not there. And I think now it's coffee break, and we start again at 15:30. So you have a shorter coffee break, but I think it was an interesting discussion. Thanks a lot.